Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to some brief highlights on the Senetas financial year, full-year results 2024. My name's Andrew Wilson, CEO of Senetas. So the consolidated group revenue, operating revenue, was 31.2 million, up 6.5%, with good growth in Vitiro's segment revenues. Reported segment operating revenue after adjusting for variable consideration was up 6.8%, and Vitiro's operating revenue was up 25%. And importantly, the annual recurring revenue of Vitiro was up 49% to 10.4 million. Strong growth in sales to customers of Senetas hardware products, driven by renewed distribution efforts by TELUS, where revenues were up 100% compared to the prior period, and the number of units we shipped to end customers was up 48%. Consolidated gross profit increased by 12.6% to 27 million, with gross margins up 4% to 86%. Segment adjusted revenue, profit before tax, was up 63% after eliminating the impact of variable consideration. Next slide. So in a bit more detail, Senetas operations for 2024. So we had strong growth in customer demand for our Senetas encryptors, and it included the largest single sale in the company's history to a Middle Eastern government agency, which was product revenue over $2 million plus a maintenance contract that will add an additional $1.4 million in revenue over the next 3 years. So we're very happy to see that. We've been working on that particular customer contract and customer opportunity for a number of years. Now that the global component shortages have eased up, we're seeing some of these large infrastructure projects being spun up again, and Senetas encryption technologies being required to encrypt information across these large network rollouts. So we do have a number of other large opportunities in the pipeline, but it is hard to predict exactly when those opportunities will come to fruition. So we expect inventory levels to return to a more historic level over the next 12 to 24 months, because of course we had to build up inventory levels during the chip shortage to ensure we could supply customers on a timely basis. It was very pleasing to see the Senetas pipeline grew significantly through the 2023 calendar year and into 2024, although it did moderate in the second half of financial year 2024 as some of our large transactions were completed. But we have returned to growing pipeline in over recent months and the early part of financial year 2025. Our core R&D projects in 2024 included upgrades to Senetas's 10 gig encryptors and a new version of our 100 gig encryptor. And we're going through a recertification process in North America to obtain a new certification that will ensure that we can continue to sell to government agencies in the United States, because those certifications have changed somewhat. And we're also conducting proof of concept trials on a new encryption hardware product that is targeted at tactical environments, including autonomous vehicles. And we expect this work to open up what could be a new market for the company's technology. Next slide. So here are some highlights from Vitiro. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that annual recurring revenue is now 10.4 million. It was up 49% from August 2023, which is very pleasing to see. Total sales pipeline for Vitiro continues to grow strongly. It's now 35.4 million. The accounting revenue is 9.7 million. That's up 25% from 2023. And the total contract value for Vitiro is 33.3 million. It's also pleasing to see the customer renewal rate of greater than 90%. But I will point out that the renewal rate could be higher, except that some Japanese legacy customers are no longer using the product, and that was a strategic choice by Vitiro to exit some of that market. So excluding the impact of that, the customer renewal rate is 95%. Next slide. So Vitiro operations, over 70 new customers and upsell deals have been signed by Vitiro since the beginning of calendar year 2023. including 30 that have been signed into the 2024 calendar year to date. And Vitiro launched its new data detection and response capability, we call it DDR, in the second half of financial year 2024. And it represents a major new opportunity, particularly for the North American market. These capabilities provide a unified content security platform to provide data detection and response, combining real-time security for data privacy and threat protection. So it really is an industry first, where we bring together threat prevention, data security, and privacy controls in a zero trust solution. So we believe that'll play a key role in accelerating Vitiro's penetration of the cybersecurity market, particularly in North America. And we're seeing already the results of that in the early stages of the release of this particular capability, with $3.5 million worth of new pipeline that has been built up to July 2024. So Vitiro's total sales pipeline was over 35 million at July 2024. The company continues to target cash flow break even by the end of the calendar year. Next slide. So just for the outlook, strong customer sales of Senetas products is expected to be maintained in financial year 2025. We continue to grow pipeline, particularly in the June quarter, providing sort of solid momentum going into 2025. A more significant reduction in Thales inventories is likely in 2025 as inventories return to historical norms, which means lower inventory transfers and therefore potentially a negative impact from variable consideration. But of course, we do present those numbers adjusting for variable consideration, so shareholders can compare on a like-for-like basis. We expect end customer sales in financial year 2024, again adjusting for variable consideration, to be maintained at a similar level to financial year 2024. Some key sales opportunities in the Middle East may provide some upside to that expectation. However, it's challenging to predict exactly when these opportunities may come to fruition, as many of these customer, government and defence organisations with long lead times. We're in the process of shipping our largest order by volume, that is number of units, via Thales for a new North African government customer. That'll be the first time we've sold to that particular country, so we're excited about that. And we expect Vitiro's growth momentum to continue in financial year 2025. Pipeline continues to grow, and the new DDR product has already made a significant contribution to pipeline in its first few months, significantly enhancing opportunities in the North American market. APAC remains the largest market, and most of the large opportunities in the near term are there, and cash flow break even remains a target for Vitiro toward the end of calendar year 2024, thereby limiting the amount of financial support required from its shareholders. And that concludes the presentation from me. We'll have some question and answers later on in this session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well done, Andrew, on the result. There's some very interesting parts of the business, and it's very encouraging to see Vitiro starting to hit its straps. As you know, I've been covering the company for quite a while now. All of our research is available on the Senetas Investor Hub, but also the Trim Capital website for those investors who want to know more about the story or read the research. It's available free of charge. I did have a couple of questions, and most of them are in relation to Vitiro, if that's okay with you, Andrew. That's caught the excitement of most people. And I suppose the most exciting development has been the growth in the sales pipeline, and mainly due to the new data detection and response capability. 3.5 million of sales generated only in the first few months. Just wondering what we should expect going forward.
Yeah, so I would, obviously that's $3.5 million worth of new sales opportunities in pipeline. We expect to begin to convert some of those, some of that new pipeline in North America, particularly because customers have been asking for that kind of capability as an addition to our CDR capability that Vitiro already offers. So This is driven by customer feedback. It's taken us about a year to develop. We released it back in sort of in the second quarter of this calendar year, and so we're already seeing a great response from customers for this DDR capability, and so we expect to continue to add pipeline driven by this new capability in North America and start to convert those sales.
So does that mean most of the sales are from existing customers, and will that remain the case for some time to come?
At the moment, most of the sales that we've seen over the last financial year have been for the existing product. We have made a couple of small sales for the DDR product already, and we continue to expect to sell the existing product and then DDR in combination as a blended solution for North American customers, and eventually customers in the Asia Pacific region as well, which are interested in similar kinds of capability. Because of course, it's not just preventing malware entering an organization, it's also ensuring that private and sensitive information is handled correctly in the enterprise or organization. So that is what the DDR capability can deliver to customers, and that is the ability in real time to manage and handle sensitive information as they're required to do under privacy laws and regulations around the world. And they can do that on the fly and set the policy. They can mask or redact sensitive information. They can ensure that the right person sees the right information at the right time.
Yeah, you did call out a couple of contract delays, but I suppose you're continuing to win new business, in particular technology trials against your competitors. You win business. Are these delays a timing issue?
They're a timing issue, and a lot of Vetero customers are large government agencies, particularly in the Asia Pacific region, and of course we are subject to these large organisations' timelines. And internal resourcing of these customers can affect and delay the implementation, which of course then delays the actual cash flow event. So we do struggle with that from time to time. But as the business grows, when we become less reliant on those large deals, because we've built pipeline and we have lots of other deals, then I expect that to smooth out.
And in terms of the operating cash outflows of the Vetero business, in the second half, it was around 9.1 million.
Yeah.
Is that the number we should expect going forward? It will climb over time?
Well, that number is a bit misleading, and the reason for that, if you have a look back at the first half report, you'll see that number is much lower. And the reason for that is in the second half of the calendar year, being the first half of 2025 for us, we get lots of customer renewals. These are large customers that renew and then pay up front, right? So you do need to look at it on a full year basis, because a lot of our large customer contracts are renewed in the second half of the calendar year. So that number is higher in the first, lower in the second.
Excellent. And just turning towards the Senetas business, your customer sales in FY25 seem to be at a similar level to FY24. Is this so it's broadly flat? Just the outlook for this business going forward?
Yeah, look, at the moment we're expected to, or targeting, expected to be broadly flat. There is upside to that number, but it's just difficult to predict what financial year some of these large opportunities may fall into, because again, like Vetero, we are dealing with very large government defence agencies, and we can't really force them to bend to our financial year targets and timelines. But the pleasing thing is there are more of those larger projects in the pipeline than ever before. So over time, I do expect revenues to grow.
Yep. And I suppose the traditional Senetas business has been around for many years, which means that there's many hardware encryptors out there currently installed. Do they get renewed, or how does that work over time? And what's the product?
Yeah, they do get renewed in some cases, or in many cases, you've got customer networks that go through a a refresh cycle. So they may have a 1 gig network, find that data volumes have grown. They need to provision a 10 gig network and then eventually a 100 gig network. So, customers will, at those refresh points, buy Senetas encryptors, and it may be, instead of a 10 gig encryptor, it may be a 100 gig encryptor, for example. There are some customers that do refresh old equipment, and we are going through some of those refresh cycles now. So
will that potentially drive further sales as you upgrade your encryptors, where people were traditionally on the 10, they're now going to the 100?
yeah, that's right. It does take time. That's a between a 5 and 7 year process.
Yep. And just wondering, just in the Senetas revenue in the USA, which has dropped for the Vitero business, what are the reasons behind that?
Oh, the Senetas revenue in the US. Really, that's just timing of various projects that the company's been working on. We do expect revenues to pick up somewhat in the United States, and certainly pipeline's grown there significantly. It was affected. Sales were affected during the chip shortage, particularly in the United States. So I do expect that to grow again as there's been renewed focus on selling our product by the North American Taylor sales team.
And I suppose for myself and potential investors, just targets for ARR for Vitero going forward. Is there anything announced, or how should we look at that?
No, nothing announced, but we do expect good momentum in growth of ARR and in Vitero. But at the moment, we haven't announced any targets.
And similarly for EBITDA or NPAT, there's no guidance, I suppose.
No published guidance, but of course, our we are targeting cash flow break even by the end of the calendar year.
Excellent.
For Vitero.
Well, there's no further questions for me, but thank you for your time, Andrew.
Yep. Thanks very much, Glenn. Appreciate the questions.